Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage from the second game of the 2016 World Championship match between world champion Magnus Carlsen from Norway and his challenger Sergei Karjakin from Russia. Karjakin was white, Carlsen was black. The first game was a draw and this was game 2, played in the Fulton Market in Manhattan in New York City on the 12th of November 2016. It started with a small surprise. Karjakin played e2, e4. Lately he has been mainly playing d4 and knight f3 on the first move, but he chose e4 for this game. Carlsen replied with a classic e7, e5, and after knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, we get the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish opening. a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castling, bishop e7. No Berlin from Magnus Carlsen. He played Berlin a number of times in his previous 2 World Championship matches against Viswanathan Anand, but not today. d3, a calm continuation in this main variation of the closed Spanish. b5, bishop b3, d6. Karjakin played a2, a3. He wants to preserve the powerful bishop and he's anticipating knight a5 to come, and then he can move his bishop back to a2 to safety. He does not want to trade that bishop against the knight on c6. Carlsen castled, knight c3, and there comes knight a5, a standard idea in this opening. Bishop a2, and Carlsen wants to do something about that powerful bishop that looks annoyingly at f7, and he plays bishop e6. Karjakin could have taken, then Carlsen of course takes back with the f pawn. Has doubled pawns, but at the same time he strengthens his center, so that would be not a bad doubled pawn to have for black. Karjakin didn't take on e6, he's played d4, and please note that the d pawn went in 2 steps to d4, so this is a slow variation of this main line Ruy Lopez. But of course perfectly playable for white and also for black. Carlsen decided to take on a2 and temporarily misplace the rook. Rook e8, normal developing move, and Karjakin quickly went back with the rook to a better square. He wants to centralize his rook later. It's not doing anything on a2. And now Carlsen thought for a long time, about 25 minutes, and then he played knight c4. Grandmaster Judith Polgar in the studio said, typical for a very strong player, he wants to improve his worst placed piece straight away. Knight on a5 not doing anything, and Carlsen wants to improve it and plays it to c4. This is a slow maneuvering game, no concrete variations to calculate, a lot of maneuvering around. Rook e1 and rook c8 looks a bit mysterious, but of course black's idea is to play c7, c6 and queen c7, as Carlsen explained in a press conference, and I have some sound bites on that later. h3, h6, b3, Karjakin wants to develop his bishop to b2. Kicking the knight back, knight b6, bishop b2. You cannot win a pawn here with white. You can take on e5, d takes d5, knight takes d5, but then after queen takes d1, rook takes d1, bishop c5, black will regain the pawn on e4. You cannot hold that pawn, and this is a completely equal position. So winning a pawn here does not work, and as said, Karjakin played bishop b2. Now there's a threat to take on e5, because now white is threatening to win a pawn, and Carlsen played bishop f8, protecting e5 one more time. And as Karjakin said later, after bishop f8, he thought that black had achieved total equality. Now comes a very principled decision from white. He took on e5. It was criticized also by Judith Polgar. She said, why does white not keep the tension in the center, try to keep maneuvering? But as Carlsen and Karjakin explained later, black has a clear plan: c6, queen c7, maybe c5. And for white it's not easy to come up with a plan. And therefore they thought taking on e5 was perfectly reasonable. It releases the tension, and also some pieces come off the board. D takes e5, a4, c6, and the queens come off. Rook takes back, a takes b5, and a takes b5, and we have an endgame with a totally symmetrical pawn structure. Karjakin didn't like his knight on c3, and he rerouted it to e2 with the idea to go to g3 and later maybe to f5. And Carlsen played the nice move bishop b4, attacking the rook, and Karjakin felt he had to play bishop c3. c2, c3 is another option, but that buries the bishop on b2. So he played bishop c3, and another piece gets swapped off. Knight bd7, rook a6. Yes, white is controlling the a file, but it doesn't mean much. Rook c8 defending the pawn. b4, good move to stop knight c5, which would have a tempo on the rook and would also put some pressure on the e4 pawn. And here Carlsen played rook e6. Rook b1, a prophylactic move against the c6, c5 move, which came anyway, as expected. Rook takes e6, f takes e6. Yesterday Karjakin had doubled pawns on the f file, and today Carlsen has doubled pawns on the e file. But it's no big deal. Knight takes b5, c takes b4, rook takes b4, and rook takes c2. The whole queen side has now been liquidated, and we're very close to the end. Not much to play for. Knight e6, and there was the end, because Carlsen saw a move repetition. Rook c1 check, king h2, and rook c2 attacking the f2 pawn. King g1, and both players shook hands. Some sound bites from the press conference. Karjakin said, "I didn't play very interestingly today. 2 draws is a normal result. Fun games will come later on." And he particularly liked bishop b4, Carlsen's move. And he said, "I have to be precise with 23, bishop c3. Carlsen said it was a playable position for both sides. Today was a decent game with black, and all is well. After the opening, I'm very solid in the center. Not sure what white's plan is. My moves are c6 and queen c7. White would like to regroup the knight to g3, but then there would be problems in the center. It was fairly easy to play for black, so I understand he simplified with d takes e5, as it's not clear what white can do. After the queens were swapped, I thought I could be slightly better, but I couldn't find anything better than 27, c6, c5. 2 draws, hopefully more fireworks in future games." Hope you liked this coverage, this overview of Game 2. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment if you want. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.